The Bible tells us in Exodus 15, it talks about Pharaoh's chariots and his host hath he cast into the sea.
The sonar first picked up the strange shapes. They were too symmetrical, too uniform to be natural rock formations. When the deep sea drones descended, the images that came back were stunning. The distinct outline of chariot wheels, half buried in sand and encrusted in coral.
This shows a chariot wheel. There's approximately 20,000. We've collected a couple of horses' hooves.
This was the moment a team of salvage divers realized they had stumbled upon something monumental in the Red Sea. They were searching for the lost army of an ancient Egyptian pharaoh. And the evidence suggests they found it. But this incredible discovery comes with a terrifying warning that has everyone on edge. A tomb of sand and coral. The discovery is, to put it mildly, staggering. Using state-of-the-art side-scan sonar and remotely operated vehicles, a team of seasoned salvage divers returned to the very coordinates marked by the controversial explorer Ron Wyatt more than 40 years ago. His claims of spotting Egyptian chariot wheels on the floor of the Red Sea were long ridiculed, but the new team was determined to find the truth. With metal detectors sweeping the seabed in the Gulf of Ioba, they may have just brought to light one of the most extraordinary archaeological finds of the century. You see, the thing nobody tells you is that this area, Noia Beach, is geographically unique. It opens onto a massive flat underwater land bridge, the only one of its kind in the entire Gulf. It stretches about 10 miles across to modern-day Saudi Arabia, with depths plunging to 5,000 feet on either side. Divers reported finding strange metallic signatures hidden beneath coral-covered mounds. At first, many dismissed these as noise or debris from modern shipwrecks. But the deeper the divers went, the more undeniable the evidence became. Beneath the waves, eerie shapes began to emerge from the gloom. Symmetrical structures with sharp, distinct edges, almost like the wheels of an ancient chariot frozen in time. The closer they looked, the clearer the outlines became. At least 3 distinct wheel-like formations stood out, encrusted with a thick layer of coral, but still holding their form after centuries underwater. The most shocking fact is that these weren't just random chunks. They were found in a straight line, as if marking a path of panicked retreat. Their high-resolution cameras captured every chilling detail. One wheel in particular glimmered faintly with a gold-like sheen beneath the coral, its 4 spokes clearly visible. It was weathered, yes, but strangely preserved enough to send chills down the divers' spines. This wasn't just another relic lost at sea. It looked like something that could challenge everything modern archaeology had accepted as fact. As they pressed on, more fragments appeared, pieces of metal, axles, and even what looked like the remnants of a chariot cab. Then came the bone shards, hundreds of them that looked human and horse-like, scattered along the seabed. Each discovery seemed to echo the claims of Ron Wyatt, the man whose theories had been mocked for decades. "This is bad news," one diver was heard saying over the comms. For believers, the sight was breathtaking, the physical remnants of Pharaoh's drowned army from the biblical Exodus. For skeptics, it was deeply unsettling. What if the world had been wrong all along? The reason for the ominous warning became clear. The artifacts were disintegrating. Centuries of saltwater corrosion, relentless tides, and the crushing weight of silt had done their damage. These weren't polished relics, destined for a museum. Many of them would never leave the sea. What remained were fragile ghosts, collapsing under the pressure of time and the slightest touch. Metallurgists consulted remotely confirmed that some fragments matched the metallurgy of late Bronze Age Egypt. Coral and crustacean growth made cleaning impossible without destroying them. But the sonar imaging revealed the unmistakable outlines of wheels with 4 and 6 spokes, the signature of Egyptian military chariots. They even uncovered part of an axle wedged deep in the sea floor. What many overlooked at first was the sheer scale. This wasn't 1 or 2 chariots. The debris field stretched for nearly a mile. But the most chilling find of all was still to come. What they found next was far more personal than metal and wood. Funded by faith, the mission itself was planned in absolute secrecy. In late 2024, a small hand-picked team of elite divers and marine technology experts gathered in Abba, Jordan. Their target, a forgotten stretch of the Red Sea near Nuia Beach, on the Egyptian side of the Gulf of Aoba. But this wasn't your average dive. Many people are crazy about finding sunken ships or lost pirate treasure. But this team was different. They were chasing the ghost of a claim made nearly 50 years ago by Ron Wyatt, an explorer who insisted he had found the wheels of Pharaoh Ramesses II's chariots beneath the waves. The team, a mix of tough marine engineers, ex-military divers, and seasoned underwater archaeologists, set out to see if Wyatt had been telling the truth. Their arsenal of equipment was cutting edge, costing well over $10 million. Hay had sonar imaging systems that could map the seabed in 3 dimensions. Deep sea drones with high-resolution cameras and submersible scanners capable of detecting even the slightest magnetic anomaly in the sediment. But despite all the tech, the mission almost didn't happen. You see, the thing nobody tells you is that this kind of exploration is fraught with political red tape. Funding requests sent through traditional archaeological channels were rejected outright. Government agencies and universities dismissed the idea as pseudo-scientific nonsense. One Israeli antiquities official reportedly scoffed, saying there was nothing there but coral and conspiracy. To make matters worse, several governments quietly warned the divers not to explore the site, citing fragile marine preservation laws. It became clear that someone didn't want those waters disturbed, but not all things are what they seem, Czar. The resistance only hardened the team's resolve. A group of discreet, private backers finally stepped in. These were wealthy enthusiasts of biblical archaeology, people who had followed Ron Wyatt's controversial claims for years. Some were simply curious billionaires with a taste for adventure. Others were deeply motivated by faith. Together, they funded the entire operation quietly, without any publicity, and with complete discretion. Months of meticulous planning followed. Permits for geological surveying were quietly secured, a clever cover for their true objective. They were about to dive into one of history's greatest mysteries, and they were doing it completely off the books. Just as the mission began, a drone operator spotted the first unsettling clue: a half-buried horse skull tangled in seagrass. When it was later brought up for testing, the results were a bombshell. It matched an ancient Egyptian breed once used to pull royal chariots. That alone was staggering, but the real shock was still to come. Moments later, a diver's strained voice crackled through the radio. "This is not good." The crew assumed equipment trouble until the live feed from his helmet cam appeared on their monitors. What they saw froze them in place. Human remains. Not a few scattered bones, but hundreds. Skulls, ribs, and spines lay entangled with coral-covered spears and the splintered remains of wooden frames. These weren't the casualties of a simple shipwreck. They were clusters of people seemingly caught mid-flight, as if a cataclysm had swept over them all at once. The dive no longer felt like an expedition. It felt like descending into an underwater resting place, a 3,000-year-old scene of catastrophe. But who was the man who first pointed them to this exact spot? Wyatt's Holy Grail. For many, the belief in Pharaoh's sunken chariot army traces back to one man, the explorer who first dared to claim, "I found the wheels." His name was Ron Wyatt, a self-taught adventurer who captured imaginations and stirred fierce controversy. Wyatt is the figure most often invoked whenever the Red Sea crossing debate resurfaces. To his followers, he was a trailblazer. To his critics, a fraud. Either way, his story simply refuses to die. What many overlooked is that Wyatt wasn't a professor. He held no archaeological license and had no formal training in history. For most of his life, Wyatt worked quietly as a nurse and anesthetist in Tennessee. But inside him burned a conviction that the Bible wasn't just a book of faith, but a literal historical record waiting to be proven. In the 1970s, Wyatt began pouring his energy into what he saw as a divine calling, uncovering the physical evidence behind the Bible's greatest miracles. He funded his own expedition, scraping together money from friends, church groups, and small private donors. To put it mildly, his methods were unconventional. His early journeys were bold, even audacious. In Turkey, he claimed to have located the resting place of Noah's Ark on Mount Ararat. In Saudi Arabia, he pointed to what he believed was the true Mount Si, insisting it still bore the black and scorch marks of God's fire. Each claim pushed him further into the spotlight and deeper into controversy. But nothing would draw more global attention than his dive into the Red Sea in 1978. That year, Wyatt traveled to Nuibia Beach. With only basic scuba gear and almost no formal backing, he slipped beneath the waters of the Gulf of Ioba, driven by little more than scripture and faith. And according to Wyatt, what he discovered down there would change everything. He claimed he had seen something extraordinary. Coral-encrusted shapes that looked just like the wheels of ancient Egyptian chariots. Some, he said, had 4 spokes, others had 6 or even 8. He also described spotting human femurs and skulls, some appearing to have been crushed by a tremendous force. Perhaps his boldest claim was of a shimmering circular object glinting on the seafloor, what he believed to be a gold-plated chariot wheel. But when it came to hard evidence, Wyatt's case collapsed. He never produced certified photographs that could be properly analyzed. No peer-reviewed papers ever supported his claims. And despite decades of speculation, no physical artifacts were ever officially retrieved from the seafloor. Official institutions denied him access to excavation permits, and most academic journals refused to publish his findings. They argued his methods were crude, his tools too basic, and his interpretations built more on faith than science. Still, his story took on a life of its own, spreading through grainy photos and low-budget documentaries. To believers, Wyatt was a modern prophet chosen to confirm an astonishing miracle. So, if he really saw all this, why did he leave it at the bottom of the sea, rewriting the textbooks? So, if Wyatt's claims were true, why weren't these priceless artifacts brought to the surface? According to Ron Wyatt himself, the waters of the Gulf of Ioba guard their secrets well. He offered 4 key explanations. First, the coral. He insisted the wheels and bones were completely encrusted in hardened coral, which had preserved their shapes but left them impossibly fragile. Touching them, he feared, would cause them to crumble into dust. Second, the risk of removal. Wyatt believed the seafloor itself had become both a coffin and a shield. Once disturbed and exposed to air and light, the objects would rapidly decay, leaving nothing behind but fragments and unanswered questions. Third, there was the law. The Gulf of Aba falls under Egypt's strict archaeological jurisdiction. Removing any artifact without government approval is a serious crime. Wyatt claimed this legal wall made it nearly impossible to recover or even publicly display his alleged finds. And then came his 4th most provocative claim, the golden chariot wheel. Unlike the others, this wheel wasn't covered in coral. It was smooth, gleaming, and appeared to be plated in gold. According to his account, he actually recovered this piece and handed it over to Egyptian authorities. But this is where the story unravels. There are no verified photographs, no museum listings, no official report, nothing. This brings us back to the recent expedition and the divers' cryptic warning. This is bad news. The bad news wasn't just that the artifacts were fragile. It was that they were actively being destroyed. The team reported that since Wyatt's time, large sections of the debris field appear to have been deliberately cleared or covered over. Some speculate it's the work of governments wanting to avoid a controversial discovery that could destabilize historical and religious narratives. Others whisper about looters. The most shocking fact is that the golden wheel, if it ever existed, is gone. The find is bad news, because the evidence for one of history's greatest events is vanishing before it can be properly studied. This is where the story gets really strange. Some people watching this are probably wondering, could this all happen overnight? Could it all be a hoax? The thing is, the pushback from mainstream academia has been intense. Prominent voices argue that even if the objects are real, they could be from other, more recent shipwrecks. They point out that the Gulf of Ioba was a busy shipping lane for centuries. But are we missing a key detail? The artifacts are all from the right time period, of the right design, and found in a massive debris field consistent with a fleeing army, not a single sinking ship. This discovery isn't bad news because it might be fake. It's bad news because it might be real. And if it is, it forces a terrible question. What else have we been told that isn't true? Is it possible that history as we know it is built on a lie, and powerful forces are trying to keep the truth buried? Let us know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe.